I'm very glad today to be joined by so many nonpartisan community, civic, faith leaders, and grassroots leaders as we are less than 50 hours from the Maryland State Board of Elections making a final decision on where early voting centers will be located in Montgomery County. My message today is the same. The State Board of Elections needs to restore early voting to the people of East County and to Bethesda. The decision by the county board to close the sites at Praisner and Lawton community centers is a blatant attempt at voter suppression. It violates both the spirit of the early voting law, of which I was an original co-sponsor, and the legal requirements for sites laid out in Maryland regulations. This is not a partisan issue. Let me repeat, this is not a partisan issue. This is about making voting easier, not harder, for as many citizens as possible. Our concern is not that the board erected barriers to Democrats voting. All of the groups and leaders represented behind me today are strictly nonpartisan. Our shared concern is not that the board erected barriers to Democrats voting, it's that the board erected barriers to voters voting. And we are not the only ones who feel this way. I'm announcing today that we'll be delivering a petition signed by 2,500 residents demanding the state board reverse the hyper-partisan recommendation of the new majority on the Montgomery County Board of Elections. And the petitions are stacked right in front of you here on the Greek column to show the democracy that we're standing up for today. The names on these petitions are Republicans, are Democrats, and independents. They're African Americans, Latinos, Asian Americans, Continental Africans. They're millennials and seniors. We all want the same exact things: to cast their ballots in an easy and convenient manner, without waiting in endless lines, without having to take time off work, at a site that they can take transit to, and if they drive, at a site with adequate parking. That was our intent when I was an original co-sponsor of the early voting legislation in Annapolis. The clear intent of the General Assembly was to improve convenience, reduce delays, and increase total voter participation. We learned at the hearing on October 1st that the decision of the majority to make voting harder for people of color, seniors, and working families was made in illegal, secret meetings behind closed doors in consultation with party leaders. As more and more people have heard about the voter suppression in Montgomery County, the more outraged they have become, and that's why you see 2,500 signatures on a petition we've been circulating just for 3 short weeks. Voters have not stayed silent. They've signed this petition, they've written letters, they've made calls, they've attended rallies, and I hope the members of the State Board of Elections on Thursday hear what the voters of Maryland are saying. Here is one insightful comment from a petition signer named Deborah from Brookville, who says, quote, "I happen to live near the new voting site, and I know that it's not near any large population center, nor is it easily accessible via public transportation. I feel that putting early voting at Longwood will create a hardship for anyone who doesn't have a car." And again, she's from Brookville, not Burtonsville. Throwing up barriers to voting for working families and people of color is not what we do in Montgomery County. This is not what we do in Maryland. This does not reflect our values. Unlike other states like Texas, North Carolina, and Alabama, Maryland's history has been to make voting as straightforward as possible. Over the last few years, when I was in the General Assembly, we voted to expand early voting hours, to add early voting sites, to add early voting on Sunday, and to allow same-day voter registration. And I'm happy that my colleagues in the General Assembly are continuing these reforms by pushing for automatic same-day registration. I know Chairman Jim Shalek has come under fire recently, and now he proposes to reopen the Praisner site. He's been quoted as saying that he's looking for a, quote, compromise, that we should haggle and horse trade over who can early vote and who can't. He wants us to stop talking about this and to claim some sort of victory and go home. Let me say this to Mr. Shalek. You do not talk about compromises when you're talking about voting rights. We don't condone blatant voter suppression, whether it's done in my district, in Burtonsville, or in another district in Bethesda. I refuse to be picking winners and losers between voters from different parts of the county. From what Mr. Shalek is saying, it seems like he still misunderstands his role. The members of the Board of Elections are not policymakers, and they're not elected. The General Assembly passed, and the voters of Maryland ratified a constitutional amendment to authorize early voting to improve convenience for the greatest number of voters possible. Convenience for the greatest number of voters. With that mandate, the regulations spell out very clearly the specific requirement for site locations. It's not the role of the board to cook up any additional criteria like geographic diversity. And it's not their role now to negotiate with us with partisan intent which sites stay open and which ones close. Their role is simply to carry out the law and the regulations as they were passed by the General Assembly. If they want to propose different criteria like geographic diversity, the process is they need to bring that proposal before the appropriate state authorities on the AELR committee. The majority members of the local board should not have waited till the 11th hour to now be willing to listen to people. The process has been flawed from the start. There is only one solution for early voting to return to the Praisner and Lawton community centers, period, end of sentence. Let me turn it over to my colleague, Councilmember Roger Berliner.
And let me begin by expressing my appreciation to Councilmember Tom Hucker. Let's hear it from Mr. Hucker. Why is this so important? Let me read a quote. "The vote is the most powerful instrument ever devised by man for breaking down injustice." Lyndon Johnson. Ladies and gentlemen, there's a reason why compromise on this issue is simply unacceptable. On the county council, I often get kidded as somebody who searches for common ground. And I think in many, many instances, that is what is called for. And we do have a Republican governor that we are going to have to work with on any number of issues and have worked productively on transportation issues. And I hope we will continue to do so. But not on this. This cannot happen in Montgomery County. It cannot happen for all the reasons that Councilmember Hucker said. In the state of Maryland, voting is too precious. If you want to, I represent both Bethesda and Potomac. And some of my colleagues have said, well, gee, Councilmember Berliner, you should be indifferent. Well, actually, no. We cannot be indifferent if we are picking sites in which there are fewer voters voting. Period. So I have a compromise for Mr. Shalek. If you want voting in these other two sites, support state law, which expands the number of early voting sites. Okay? That's how we can compromise on this issue. Let's have more early voting sites for more people, not fewer people. So I am so pleased that so many are standing here united, because we cannot let this happen here in our community and in our state, and we will fight to the end for that very purpose. Thank you all very much for being here.
Thank you, Councilmember. Let me turn it over to the Chair of the Government Operations Committee, Councilmember Nancy Navarro.
Thank you very much, Councilmember Hucker and Councilmember Berliner, for this gathering. It's very important that we continue to send the message that this county council has taken a lead in making sure that we actually expand opportunity for voters. You know, we decided to add another site. We decided to fund that additional site because we believe in the fundamental right to vote. And we believe that we have to be strategic about where we place these early voting sites, because we want to make sure that we are actually facilitating the opportunity to vote, especially when it comes to areas where we have more density, when we know we have more access to public transportation, and where we have groups of our own residents who have been disenfranchised for so long. So we have a history of doing this, not through calculations based on partisan gain. We've done it because we know that this is the right thing to do for everyone. So the message is clear, and I absolutely agree with Councilmember Berliner. The compromise should be that the partisan members of the board, if that's what they wish to do, should pursue legislation to expand the number of sites, and then they can add them and we can have more opportunities. But as it stands, the sites that we have in place, that we have had in place, they are the ones that we need to restore, and we urge the State Board of Elections to do the right thing and to preserve the right to access to vote for all people in Montgomery County, especially those who traditionally have had more difficulty. That's why we're here together today, and that's what we will continue to fight for. Thank you.
Thank you. Our council president, I very much appreciate, has said from the beginning that we all speak with one voice on this on the county council. Let me turn it over to Council President George Leventhal.
Thank you, Tom and Roger, for putting this event together. I'm surprised at how clumsily this has been handled by the majority of the Board of Elections. I'm surprised that they didn't understand that it is wrong and likely illegal to coordinate prior to a meeting with the majority of members of the board. I'm surprised that the concept of violating open meetings law never even occurred. I mean, these are things that we don't do. We don't make decisions in the back room prior to coming forward with only members of one party, and it's just surprising to me. I don't understand what was the thought process that made the majority of this Board of Elections think that maybe people wouldn't notice, or that was it an intentional fight that was picked? Was it an intent to have this argument? It's really mysterious to me, the motive. And so we want to govern on the basis of clear criteria. The clear criteria are set forth in the law. Geographic diversity is not one of them. It's not something that was ever suggested. Square miles don't vote. So to say that, a particular location hasn't been afforded the opportunity to have an early voting site when very, very few people live there is not only in conflict with the law, but it's very much in conflict with good and wise stewardship of taxpayer dollars. I thought the Republican Party was the party that put an emphasis on spending money wisely. I like Brookville. It's a pleasant community. Its population density does not merit an early voting site. Now Mr. Shalek has backed away from that, but he's still not supporting the Lawton Center, which is densely populated and clearly serves more voters, Democrats and Republicans. The Lawton Center is more convenient for Democrats and Republicans.
Thank you, Council President. I really appreciate all the folks coming out from Reed Temple today, so let me get up here, Reverend Matthew Watney. Thank you.
I greet you in the name of the only name that matters, Jesus, who is the Christ, and I am amazed at how 20 years ago, actually more than that, as an undergraduate student at Howard University, I learned terms like gerrymandering and poll tax, grandfather clause, and I thought those are relics of an era gone where local individuals sought to disenfranchise wholesale groups of people from the right to vote. The Bible has shown itself again clear today that there's nothing new under the sun. What this group has attempted to do is to steal away from the hard-fought, blood-bought right to vote of the citizens of this county. I'm a minister, I'm not an attorney, but the terms arbitrary and capricious comes very much to mind. How do you justify moving away from the two sites which it has been said may comprise up to 25% of the voting power? What's the rational basis that one would use to justify such a move? My prayer and our stand together, not just Reed Temple, but there are pastors from across the county and churches from across the county and people of goodwill across the county are very clearly saying and standing today for one thing: this will not happen. You all better get it right tomorrow, or we'll see you on Thursday at the State Board. And let me also suggest that if any of the council persons behind me were to take such reckless behavior and actions, they would be held to account. My concern is that once a group gets caught with their hand in the cookie jar and then takes it away, that they will then not be held to account. And so my focus is not simply that rightful voting places be restored, but also that those that attempted to take it away in the first place are held to account. At the end of the day, the right to vote in a republic is sacrosanct. It is beyond the pale to consider anyone taking that away. And we, as the group of believers from Reed Temple and across the county, stand today to say it will not happen. And we pray that the state board, if the county board doesn't get it right, the state board does. And the state board should do so, not just for Montgomery County, but to send a message to the rest of the state that this still is a free state, and we intend to be so and keep it that way. My name is Matthew Wadley. I endorse this message.
Thank you, Reverend Watney. I didn't see my council colleague Sidney Katz from the 3rd District is here as well. Come on up.
Thank you very, very much, and thank you all for being here. Today is a wonderful day for Montgomery County for a poor reason. We're all here today because we understand what has happened should not have happened. And we are here today to say to Jim Shallak and to other members of the Board of Supervisors of Elections that we've all made mistakes. But what the difference is that we have to admit that we made a mistake and correct it. From what we understand, he wants to correct half of it, and that's another mistake. We need to make certain that we are doing what is right. I think that Councilmember Berliner and Councilmember Hucker and Councilmember Navarro and all have gotten it right, and Council President, that we need to make certain that the 9 voting sites that were there originally remain, and let's expand it. There's nothing wrong with expanding it. When they first talked about doing away with the Praisner Center, I thought afterwards, and we had a discussion about it, and I thought afterwards that they said that the Praisner Center went from the lowest turnout, or the second lowest turnout in Montgomery County to being the second best turnout in Montgomery County. Now, Governor Hogan is a business person. There's nobody who would have had the second worst store that became the second best store and close it without any kind of explanation. Why would you do that? This is an opportunity for the Montgomery County Board of Supervisors of Elections to get it right, not to continue this embarrassment, not to take it to the state. Say, we're sorry, we made a mistake, let's work together so we don't make a mistake again. Thank you all for being here.
Thank you, Council Member. Let me call up Elbridge James, the 2nd Vice President of the NAACP Maryland State Conference of Branches.
Good afternoon. Thank you for the County Council to present this important legislation, and we need to continue it. On behalf of the Montgomery County branch of the NAACP, Anita Powell, President, and the State of Maryland NAACP, Gerald Stansberry, President, I am Elbridge James. I am here because my mother was liberty. My father was the Constitution. My mother said, your father will protect liberty. I'm here to protect everything. I'm here to tell the governor, do not send us back. We have fought too hard. We have shed too much blood to, in fact, to take away the right to vote. But let me tell everybody, freedom is not free from effort. You have to fight and continue to fight. There's this little boy back here. We're protecting his right to hold that sign up to say that we will continue to fight. We have returning citizens who, as someone has already said, the right to vote is the most important right we have. Let us tell this governor, please do not do this. Understand by this governor's allowance of this action to have taken place, the state of Maryland NAACP is notifying all its 24 branches to say, look at your voting sites. These little subtle moves which disenfranchise us will not be tolerated. You made this first step. Unfortunately, you made it in Montgomery County. That's the wrong place to make it. The citizens of Montgomery County, especially those of us that don't have a political fight, but a constitutional and a living right, are here today to say, no, this will not happen. I applaud everyone that is here. I applaud our elected officials for protecting the rights of all citizens. Keep the fight going. Keep the fight alive. Thank you.